Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Lords of Limited. My name is Ben Warney, and joining me on the line, as always, Mr. Ethan Malevolent Chandelier Sachs. Ethan, we got in a bit of a tiff on stream today.
I felt fine. I don't know about you, but I felt fine. I was trying to engage as my friend was streaming. I was trying to give him my thoughts about what he could do with his deck, but he didn't want those thoughts, and he had some words for me, which was mostly just every time I suggested something, he replied with "You're that something." So
That's
I
my
think
go-to with kids at school.
it's pretty good. You can't, there's not much to say. Like, you can't really do much when someone says you're that. You're like, okay, well, I guess so. But you got so wrapped up in this scrabbling skull crab, like, that never milled you out. And then you were like, should I go up to 50 cards? Should I add Malevolent Chandelier? And like, that was never what the games were about. And that was all you could focus on was Malevolent Chandelier. So I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
I would also just like the listeners to know, pre-Malevolent Chandelier harassment, I was also told that my mana base was garbage and then I needed to get my splash out. So
You were splashing
hot.
You splashed Brood Spinner and Unstoppable Slasher. Well, I didn't say that before. Look, you submitted your deck and I thought to myself, this splash seems aggressive. But then
and then I said, you seem aggressive.
Then you got into game one and you had mana issues and you were trying to sideboard, and I suggested, I think can we drop the splash? Your mana's bad. You were playing Unstoppable Slasher, the 2/3 Death Touch rare, and Brood Spinner off of 2 swamps and a centipede.
And a manifest thing, the threats around every corner.
And threats
I
around
have 4
every
sources
corner.
for my 2 cards. That's responsible. Those are both good late game cards.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you need it. But what do I know? You trophied with the deck.
Boom, baby. Trophy to the deck. There's also way more important news in the Magic community right now. Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, I was just going to say that we here on Lords of Limited, we like to put lots of weight in the results of something.
Absolutely.
You know, like, if you win, that means the deck was good. If you lose, it was bad. If you flooded too many lands, mana screwed too few lands. That's what we do here. We just take the games, and that's what counts.
Absolutely. Malevolent Chandelier 2, non-Malevolent Chandelier in the deck 0.
There you go. So what's the big news, though?
Big news. Magic Fest schedule has been released, and I am able to go to all 3 of them. Whether or not that actually happens, I think I'm locking in the first 2 for sure. So we've got February 21st through 23rd, running back Mythic Championship Chicago. So definitely going there. Are you going to be attending that one?
I think I can't. I'm now remembering that I have something that weekend. So I think I can't do Chicago. But the next one I definitely am going to do.
Next one, Vegas this year is hitting in June. Prime summer break time, June 20th through 22nd, Mythic Championship Vegas. And then the fall one is earlier than normal also. It's in September. September 26th through 28th is Mythic Championship Atlanta. And that's early enough that if I wanted to go, I could skip like our 3rd Marching Man contest or whatever. That'll just be a normal ho-hum affair. I am not necessary for that one. So I think I'm locked for the first 2 and considering going to Atlanta also.
That's great. That sounds like we'll have some good Lords Limited rep at the big tournaments. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Are you going to queue for the PT? You should try and queue for the Pro Tour in June.
I mean, I'll play the limited things, I guess. I had a terrible experience with the one in Chicago.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Year,
you
though.
did.
I don't know. I'll probably play in those. The best part about that, though, for me was just going and hanging out with folks that listen to the podcast. So we'll definitely have lots of free time available for that as well.
Yeah. Very much looking forward to that. And I'm still fingers crossed that one of those Spotlight series is going to be limited. Maybe they could do a sealed one. Maybe. Please, pretty please. I'm sure William Huey Jensen is listening to this podcast and wondering what the Lords of Limited want from the Spotlight series. So I'm telling you, we want a sealed event. I bet.
Whoa. Dream bigger if we're asking for things. We want team sealed. We don't want sealed. We want team sealed, baby.
Okay, thank you.
Get it right.
Thank you. Sorry. Strike that, reverse it. We want team sealed. That is exactly what we want. Yeah, for sure. And what we want out of today's episode is to do some draft drop-ins. We've got a whole list of, we got quite a bit. If you want drafting content, this is the episode for you, because we've got a ton of different logs just sort of plop ourselves in a sort of, it's not quite what's the play. It's just sort of, what would you do? What would you pick? We've got some drafts from your day 2 of the Arena Open, and we've just got a whole mess of different spots. You're dropping into pick 2, pick 5, whatever. Here are the cards in your pile. What are you going to do and why? So play along at home. Get your phone out, whatever. Make sure you pause and go, what would I do? And then click play, and you can hear the right answers from us, because that's what we give here. We give the right answers. Before we dive into that, I'm sure we'll agree on all of these for sure. Before we get into that, let's talk about the Patreon page, patreon.com/Lords of Limited, where folks can go to give back to the show. Really fun to get to cheer folks on during Arena Open weekend last weekend. We've got sealed qualifier weekend this weekend, so really fun to get to help some folks out with sealed pools there. The Discord is where we get to do that. That's everybody who gives back via the Patreon gets access to the Discord. We have some perks moving up the reward tier rankings as well. And we want to shout out our new patrons, but we're recording super early in the week because I'm leaving for CubeCon. Ben's got a band appointment, so no new patrons to shout out right now. I'm sure we'll have a nice list next week to do that. But this is a great opportunity to just say a huge thank you to all of our past, present, and future patrons. We just truly could not do the show without you.
Amen.
Where are we starting here? Open Draft 1?
Let's do it. Open Draft 1. So pack 1, pick 1, see the following cards as options. This is a very interesting pick. No commons in consideration, but several uncommons and a rare in consideration. There's Asha's Stick Twister, the 1/2 lifelink with Delirium that has the Punisher effect when you get Delirium. There's Unnerving Grasp, 2 and a blue for the sorcery, the Manifest O War. And then Surgical Suite Hospital Room, which is the return a mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And the Hospital Room is put a +1/+1 counter on attacking creatures. And then the rare, Toby Beastie Befriender, 2 and a white for a 1/1. ETBs make a 4/4 white beast that has to have a friend attacking or blocking along with it. And then if you have 4 or more tokens, all your tokens get flying.
That's really a tough pick. It's I'm just looking at all 4 of these cards. I'm like, I don't know. I like all of these kind of equally, which honestly leads me to not want to take the white cards. And we were kind of talking about this before recording the show. I kind of just don't want to take white cards early in my drafts, at all right now. How do you feel about that statement?
I feel great about that statement. I feel similarly because I just feel like white gives you the least opportunity to leverage your draft skill. You're basically hoping to draft white blue, or you're also willing to draft white red. One of those two.
Yeah,
but I think
both
of the
those are
two,
great decks.
you prefer to draft white blue, or at least I would. Mm-hmm. And then you're just hoping you don't get pushed into white black or white green. And I think those are 2 very well-known archetypes. They're going to be heavily contested lots of the time. And if you start white, it's tough to pivot out of that into something else. Whereas starting red or something, or starting blue, you can pivot into other things. Starting white is a tough ask for me.
That's exactly my feeling. Is I feel like you kind of, it feels, I don't know, about as pigeonholey as taking a 2-color card early and trying to get into that, because sure you can, but if you find yourself if you make some close but slight hidden power level picks to get deeper into white, and then by pick 4, pick 5, that's not available to you, it's really hard to go, what do I get? What do I do? What do I jump ship for? And then to your point of you take Toby here and then you take a green card, you're already sort of thinking, well, it's pretty unlikely these both make my deck. You could splash Toby or whatever. And so while I like Toby and I really like Surgical Suite Hospital Room, I kind of just want to take neither of them, which leads me to Grasp versus Stick Twister. And I think at this point, I'm still where I was last week, which last week, meaning 2 days ago for folks playing along in real time as we're recording on Tuesday. I still really like Stick Twister. I like black decks slightly more than blue decks. I'm kind of happy to draft all the black decks right now. And I guess I'm happy to draft all the blue decks. Slightly less happy to draft blue-green, but I know that's just my own thing. I don't know. This feels like flip a coin to me.
I think Unnerving Grasp is a better card than Stick Twister. It's close. It's very close. Certainly wouldn't say anyone's wrong for taking Stick Twister here. And honestly, the thing to me that stuck out was I felt in the heat of battle that Toby was the best card, and that I was giving up some equity here. It's really hard for me, pack 1, pick 1, to not take what I think is the best card.
Yeah.
But I did take Unnerving Grasp thinking, this is maybe a little bit worse than Toby. But I for all the reasons we talked about, I did not want to start my draft white. I just felt like starting with Unnerving Grasp gave me tons more flexibility for maybe a slight hidden power.
Love it. All right, so you take the blue Manifest a War. What's next?
And then pick 2, you get a very clear bottomless pool locker room. Nothing really to consider here. If you'd started with Stick Twister, you could have had back-to-back Stick Twisters, which would have been very nice.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
then pack 1, pick 3, there's an interesting decision. So you've got the Unnerving Grasp, you've got bottomless pool locker room, and you have a choice between the following cards. You're basically definitely staying blue here. There's Glimmerlight, the equipment that makes a 1/1. There's Glimmerlight, the equipment that makes a 1/1 enchantment creature. There's Glimmer Burst, 3 and a white for the instant draw 2, make a Glimmer token. And then there's 2 Fear of Fallings, which is the 3 blue fear that's a 4/4 flyer and can take something out of the air and give it -2/-0. And then your rare is Enduring Vitality, but the blue cards are good enough that you're taking a blue card here over the green rare.
Well, you're taking a colorless card here over the green rare because you selected Glimmerlight here, which I really like that pick. I could also see Glimmerburst, certainly off the heels of our conversation last week, talking about that group of 3 commons, Glimmerburst, Vanish from Sight, and Twist Reality. And, I think even a week ago, I would have taken Fear of Falling out of this pack, but I'm just over that card. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've resolved that card and it just gets killed for 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana. And I feel like I can't recover from that tempo loss. And I just have your little voice in the back of my head saying, like, you can't afford to spend 5 mana on something that doesn't affect the board immediately. And this, I mean, it's a body, but what you're really hoping to do is untap with it and get an attack with it. And if you don't get to do that, you're pretty significantly behind. So I like passing up on those 2 in favor of Glimmerlight. I could see getting behind Glimmerburst too. I think those 2 are pretty close. But you said you felt a pinch on 2 drops this draft.
Yeah, I was thrilled that I had the Glimmerlight. A Glimmer Burst, I think I would also take Glimmer Burst over the Fear of Fallings. It's exactly what you said. It's weird in that, like, this is air elemental with upside, right? Like,
It's very powerful.
That's just not how Magic works anymore, though, right? Like, this.
Except sometimes it does. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes the 5 and 6 mana plays are good, but they've got to do something. Yeah, it can't just be like, here's stats. Like, it's got to be more than that.
There's a bevy of other cards, though, that cost 5 mana that if you untap with them will also be good. Maybe not quite as good as Fear of Falling, but I just feel pretty strongly that you need an immediate impact. You need an ETB, you need something. There's just so much good interaction in this format that playing your 5 or 6 drop and hoping to untap and attack with it is a really rough plan against good opponents.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I like the Glimmerlight pick. And this was the draft that we dropped in on last week where you were 3-0. So, like, can you give us just a quick, like, how the draft went? Like the rest of it?
Yeah. I started out heavy blue, basically got out of pack 1 mono blue and had hedged into green a little bit. Also, that Glimmer Burst wheeled, which is wild.
Hello.
Pack 1, pick 11, got that Glimmer Burst back, but had a Wary Watchdog and a Cryptid Inspector at the end of pack 1 as well, along with a bevy of blue cards. And then pack 2, pick 1, opened Omnivorous Flytrap, which is the tuna green 2/4 Delirium. When it ETBs or attacks, you could put +1/+1 counters on one thing or split among 2 things. And then if there are 6 or more card types, you get to double your +1/+1 counters on stuff. That
Super
card was
Delirium.
Super Delirium. That card was an absolute house for me. I ran very hot with it and multiple times just had it ready to go on turn 3.
Also, just clutch that Glimmerlight is one of your 2 artifacts in this final deck. So that's also nice that it works towards your types for your Super Delirium.
Yeah. And then had triple Wary Watchdog as my 2 drops, picked all of those up in pack 2, which was super nice. And then pack 3, pick 1 got bailed out with the Swarm Weaver, 2 black-green for the 2/3. When ETBs make 2 1/1s, and if you have Delirium, they turn into Death Touchers. And basically, it was just a very good Delirium deck that could consistently find and cast the Flytrap. And the Swarm Weaver had great ways to interact. It had double Unnerving Grasp, which was super strong. Fear of lost, fear of isolation that was really good to pick things up that I had manifested. It was just a very good interactive deck that could be fast and could play long, grindy games. It was a blast to play.
Love it. Love to see it. All right, can we drop in on one of my drafts here?
Please, yeah. And I don't know if we mentioned it, but did ultimately get the 4-0.
That's
we
right.
Left it at 3-0 and pulled out the 4-0. Less good after that, though.
Spoiler alert. Okay, so let's drop in to a draft here. Pack one, pick one. You grab an optimistic scavenger. That's the single white 1/1 with Eerie. Put a counter on something. Follow that up with surgical suite hospital room into grand entryway elegant rotunda. So just getting your nice double rooms for your scavenger. Then get a betrayer's bargain, the one in a red additional cost to cast, sack something, pay two to deal 5 to something, and exile it into a Glassworks Shattered Yard. So we've got 3 white cards, 2 red cards, 3 rooms for our scavenger. Pack one, pick 6. See the following cards. In terms of red and white cards, there's a Rampaging Soul Rager, the 3 mana 1/4 that's a 4/4 if you have 2 unlocked rooms. Hardened Escort, the 3 mana 2/4 in white, that when it attacks gives a thing +1/+0 and indestructible. And there's Smoky Lounge Misty Salon, the blue-red room, uncommon, that like soul rings in your first main phase and then makes an XX blue spirit, where X is the number of untapped rooms or unlocked rooms you have. What do you like here? What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are this pack is atrocious for you
Correct.
in your current spot. So I would want to take the card that has the highest upside, which I think is Smoky Lounge, Misty Salon, because you've already got these 3 rooms here. So it's potentially going to give you mana for those. It's not crazy to pick up lands to splash Misty Salon as the back half of Smoky Lounge, which would be very nice with all your rooms that you have going right now. So yeah, I like it here. I wouldn't put much stock in that this needs to make my deck or that I'm pivoting into rooms or anything like that. I would just be taking this, saying, if this makes my deck, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too, but could potentially go nicely with what I've got going on.
Yeah, that was more the question, because I think like Hardened Escort and Rampaging Soul Rager are largely blanks. Like Soul Rager is fine if you are in a dedicated rooms deck. I think it's good there if you're in blue-red rooms. But I was more asking, like, I think the pick is Smoky Lounge, but when you take it here, are you thinking, like, how much are you thinking, ooh, I could go blue-red and splash some white? Because your white is pretty bad to splash. Like, yeah, you can splash Optimistic Scavenger, but it's at its best on turn 1. You could splash Surgical Suite, I guess. Like, Grand Entryway Elegant Rotunda is not a good card to splash. It's not impactful enough. I guess you could also think about being more red-white rooms and splash Misty Salon. But all of those feel like, are those unlikely scenarios for you at this point?
Certainly the most likely one. If I take this, I think the only way it's making my deck, I'm not moving off red white at this point unless something really weird happens. Like the start of rooms that you have to go along with Optimistic Scavenger is absolutely absurd. Now, like, are you missing good aggressive creatures? Yeah, but I assume if red and white are flowing, which it looks like they are, if these are your picks, like you haven't had to move off anything yet. You haven't branched out into a third color. I would still assume that I'm red white enchantments trying to build red white aggro with the Optimistic Scavenger. And if it happens to work out to where I want Smoky Lounge Misty Salon, great, I'll put it in my deck. But I don't think this changes my plan for the draft going forward. This is a weak pack, and I'm just taking what I think is the highest upside card without having much opportunity cost to go along with taking it.
I just wanted to feel something. I've drafted Boros so much that I was really I like this draft wanted me to be red white so much, and I resisted it like so hard. I eventually was like, all right, I'll do it when I got like my second Arabella in pack 2. But I did try. I took Smoky Lounge, a spec on some blue, got a Marina Vendril, pack 2, pick 1. Like I made some bad picks because I was like, I want to do something cool. And then I was like, all right, I'll just play Arabellas. I'll just do the thing I'm supposed to do. And I finally got to, in this deck, do the Arabella Norin combo that we've like talked about
nice.
for weeks. Just like drain for 6, blink it, put it back in play. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, so for example, like if we fast forward to pack 1, pick 7 here, your next pick, you took Fear of Imposters, which is the 3/2 flash.
Like,
over Clockwork Percussionist and Most Valuable Slayer, that is wrong to me.
100%. Like I said, like I was like, all right, I kind of want to do rooms. Like maybe we'll get into the Jeskai enchantment space, whatever. Like, no, you're at the PT. You take Clockwork Percussionist here.
Right. Okay. I just wanted to double check in on that.
Yeah.
All right. Let's stop in on one of mine. This is pack 1, pick 5. Here are your picks so far. You've got Ghostly Dancers, 3 white for the 2/5 flying rare. ETBs, you can return an enchantment from your graveyard or unlock a door of a locked room. And whenever an enchantment enters or you unlock a room, you get a 3/1 flying spirit creature token with flying. That card is absurd.
busted. Yeah.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Absolutely. We have Gremlin Tamer, the blue-white 2/2 with Eerie to make a gremlin. There's Unwilling Vessel, 3/2 Vigi, and whenever you have Eerie, you get a possession counter on it, and then when it dies, you make a flyer equal to the number of possession counters on it. And then we also have Grand Entryway Elegant Rotunda, which is the make a 1/1 Glimmer, and then put a +1/+1 counter on up to 2 creatures. So those are your 4 picks so far.
Just want to shout out about Unwilling Vessel because you read this that way and it surprised me before. The XX thing you make is just equal to the counters on it. So not only the possession counters, but if this gets +1/+1 counters, that adds to the total counters for the XX.
Interesting. Yeah. So I have experienced that with the slasher, the black rare slasher. That doesn't come back if it has any counters on it. So if it has a +1/+1 counter on it doesn't come back. It's just it's not just the stun counters. It's worded that way also.
Interesting. Okay, sorry. So pick 5.
Pick 5. See the following cards as options. There's Piranha Fly, 1 and a blue for the 2/1 flyer. ETB's tapped. And then in the uncommons, there's Withering Torment, 2 and a black for an instant, destroy target creature enchantment. You lose 2 life. And there's also Paranormal Analyst, 1 and a blue for the 1/3. When you manifest dread, put a card you put into your graveyard this way into your hand.
It's interesting that you read Withering Torment and not Final Vengeance. Because I would think Final Vengeance is a better spell than Withering Torment if we're naming black cards. I feel pretty strongly about that.
It's close. Yeah, I would buy that. My brain's not there. If I had fodder for Final Vengeance already, I would say yes, but you're probably going to pick it up.
Grand Entry Elegant Rotunda. You have Gremlins from Gremlin Tamer. Like, what do you mean fodder?
Okay, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Final Vengeance is better than Withering Torment. Interesting.
Also, can we talk about how depressing it is that the first card you read out of options is Piranha Fly?
I have a new respect for that card. It does some stuff in blue-white for sure.
It does some stuff. It is a magic card you can put in your deck and no judge will be called on you. What's the pivot in your mind here? Because that's what you wrote in our show notes. Do you pivot? What's the pivot?
So
for a black card?
You've got a white-blue start here, right? Uh-huh. The only enchantment you have is Grand Entryway Elegant Rotunda so far, but presumably you will pick those up. But there's literal no white cards in the pack. But also this is the play booster era, so you don't know if it was just like, maybe there wasn't a ton of white. But this is about the time, like you're basically taking Piranha Fly, because Paranormal Analyst is not going to be good in blue-white. You're basically taking Piranha Fly.
Disagree. That's the pick I want to sell you on, is Paranormal Analyst.
No.
Yes.
So you're taking one of those 2 cards, which are likely to not be great, in my opinion, for your blue-white deck, versus potentially starting down a black route here. But is this one of those starts that's just good enough that you say you're holding on to for dear life?
I kind of think so. I mean, you have like the 2 certainly best. Like you have 2 great Eerie payoffs, a 3rd very good Eerie payoff in Unwilling Vessel, and a great Eerie enabler. Like I would not want to move off of this. I like Final Vengeance a lot. I just like, if you take Final Vengeance, you're going to be black-white and you're telling me I don't get to play Tamer and Vessel? I don't love that. Here's my pitch for Paranormal Analyst. Is that I'm starting, like, I really feel like, and I know I talked about this like a little bit ago, like, I don't think this is a blue-green card. I think this is a package of card in other decks, in non-blue-green decks. Because I think this provides some really nice card advantage in this deck. And you're going to get Slimy Aquarium, right? The room that is the 3 and a blue manifest, put a counter on something. That is a card you're going to actively want with the cards that you have.
Sure.
And Unsettling Twins is going to be a white card you're going to be fine to play. And like, you don't need to have like 12. I know this is how you think of Manifest Dread, is that it's like you need 12 cards that say Manifest Dread in your deck.
I don't think about it that way.
But like Paranormal Analyst plus 3-4 cards that manifest, that's great. That's just a good little package.
You're selling me on Paranormal Analyst here. I think, and this is why the format's good, right? Because I took Piranha Fly here with the thought that blue-white is a tempo deck. Like, yes. Eerie tempo. And Piranha Fly is going to be best at home in an Eerie tempo deck. But what's to say that you're selling me on Paranormal Analyst here. I think I should have taken Paranormal Analyst because of those cards. Certainly because of Slimy Aquarium. We're definitely going to want as many copies as we can get. We would cut 0 copies of that
Yes.
card. If I had 4, I would play all 4 with the cards that I have right now to start.
Right.
And I think the other more interesting thing, or the other interesting piece of this is this start good enough to hold on to for dear life? And I think, yes, probably. Would you, with the knowledge that you were being cut on blue-white, just still keep drafting blue-white in this spot?
No, if you told me, hey, the person to your right is drafting blue white, I would probably take Final Vengeance because like I'm not dying to play Paranormal Analyst and like 4 cards that manifest dread or whatever. But I think that's
Sure.
like a really reasonable thing to do. So if you told me you're going to get cut on blue white, yeah, I'd take Final Vengeance.
I
Is that
took
what
Firefly
happened?
here, and I think ultimately, yes. Blue-white was not open, but I opened well enough, and I hung on to it well enough that I was still able to play blue-white. Went 2-1, lost to a very sweet Rims deck in round 1 in best of 3, but my final deck was absurd on the terms of the bomb level.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. You the Wandering Rescuer, that just shows up to you like it's a common. It's unbelievable.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Can you think of a time recently when you didn't feel like you could be your full self, like you were hiding behind a mask?
It's weird to say it, but I kind of feel that way in different Magic spaces. Like so many different people engage with Magic in so many different ways. It's hard to find exactly your people. It's why I feel so lucky to know you, because like I feel like we're so lockstep in that way, but around other groups where our interests aren't quite in line, I feel myself trying to fit in, whatever that ends up looking like.
I definitely get that. October is the season for wearing masks and costumes, but for some of us, we feel like we wear a mask and hide more often than we want to, at work, in social settings, or around our family.
Therapy can help you learn to accept all parts of yourself, so you can leave the masks for Halloween and not for your emotions.
If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule.
Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge.
Take off the mask with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/lords today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lords. And now, back to the show. I have one that came up yesterday that did you look at all these before?
I did.
Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yes. I just saw your mouse go over it and I pursed my lips.
Okay. All right. Well, so the pick is you start with Roller Crusher Ride. The X2 red mythic deals X damage to each of up to X target creatures and has Delirium, doubles the non-combat damage dealt to permanents or players. So you have that. Pack 1, pick 2. You see the following cards. There is one card that is clearly the best card. Sheltered by Ghosts. 1 and a white, aura, whatever, best uncommon in the set, blah, blah, blah. Plus and plus O, lifelink ward, exiles a thing until the creature's gone. The only red card you could think about taking as a follow-up is Infernal Phantom, 3 and a red, 2/3 Eerie, +2/+0, and then when it dies, deals damage equal to its power to any target. There's other cards. There's a Glimmerlight in the pack. There's an Altanak in the pack. So you're just telling me, case closed, take Sheltered by Ghosts, stop leveling yourself, just use your head. That's what you're saying to me?
That's what I'm saying to you. I mean, I think you can make a case for Infernal Phantom, but I don't think it's a good case. I think you're giving up equity by taking Infernal Phantom here.
I think that is mostly right. I think this pick is actually really close, personally. And I did take Infernal Phantom. Here's what I want to sell you on. If you take Sheltered by Ghosts here, are these two cards going in the same deck in your mind? Is your Boros deck running Sheltered by Ghosts and Roller Crusher Ride?
I'm with you on that. Likely not. Like, Sheltered by Ghosts is probably the most powerful card that you could see that goes the worst with the Roller Crusher Ride.
That's what I was thinking. And again, this is perhaps I'm in the spirit of I'm trying to feel something. Like, I haven't pick one this card. This card is Roller Crusher Ride is busted. It's so good. And I was like, I really want to play this card. I want to build a deck with this card. And if I take Sheltered by Ghosts, one of two things is going to happen. I'm not going to get to play that card and I'll be sad. Or I'm going to play that card and then I'm probably not playing Sheltered by Ghosts. And so I'm wasting this pick.
But there's also a world where you take Sheltered by Ghosts and just draft a great red-white deck, and the Roller Crusher Ride is a great card in your great red-white deck, and you just don't get to maximize it.
Is 5 mana deal 2 to 2 things a good card?
Yes.
That's fine, I guess.
It's good enough. And if you get to 6 mana, deal 3 to 3 things? It's great. Like,
That's true.
you can just play Roller Coaster Ride in red white. I agree. Sheltered by Ghosts is about the best card you could have that doesn't go with it, but it is good enough that you're supposed to take it here. Infernal Phantom could wheel out of this pack. That's not crazy.
Pack's not that good, but yeah, you're right. People are low enough on it. It plays so well with Roller Crusher Ride. It like does
Yes.
all the things. The Roller Coaster Ride triggers Eerie for it. Infernal Phantom deals twice. When it dies, it deals twice the damage to their face. Like,
assuming you have Delirium, but if you're building around Roller Coaster Ride, you will have Delirium.
but I did. This deck was so fun. It was so sick. I like domed people out with Shattered Yard, dealing 2 damage a turn. I ended up drafting a blue-red control deck. I had the Soul Rager, I think it's a Soul Rager, the blue-red 2-drop that sacks a room to deal 2 damage to the opponent and you draw a card, deals 4 damage with Roller Crusher Ride in play. Like, I had a real cool control burn deck that I never would have gotten if I just feel like I took Shelter by Ghosts and I just like my focus is going to be split.
I'm with you on that, which I think is why this format is cool, because you can make a case where it's not Sheltered by Ghosts. Let me sell you on the following. If you're at the PT, you have to take Sheltered by Ghosts. You're playing in pod, right?
Yes.
Like, yeah.
100%. I'm not trying. I'm already feeling something if I'm at the PT. I'm feeling that pressure, you know? So that's what I did there.
All right, next one we're going to drop into is one of mine. This is pack 1, pick 3 that we're dropping into here. You've got Painter Studio Deface Gallery, which is the exile the top 2 and your tagging creatures get +1/+0. And then Twitching Doll, which is the 1 and a green 2/2 artifact creature that puts counter on itself when you add manas of any color. And then you can sack it to make 2/2 spiders equals the number of counters it has on it. So pack 1, pick 3. See the following cards as options. This is basically, do you stay on color here with red-green or branch into another color? There's Monstrous Emergence, 1 and a green sorcery, deals damage equal to the power of a creature you chose or a card you revealed out of your hand to target creature.
Where are you at on this card?
I hate it.
He's back. Ram through hater is back.
I do. It's just been disappointing so often. And I think a lot of it has to do with the green decks I play running like 11 to 12 creatures usually, which is like an odd amount for something like Monstrous Emergence.
Okay.
It's fine. You can play it. It's just also removal that doesn't exile is significantly worse than removal that exiles. The only thing I
doesn't
like
exile and it has a setup cost.
Yes. The only thing I like less than Monstrous Emergence is Coordinated Clobbering. That card, oh my god, it frustrates me so much. Every time I begrudgingly put it in my deck and every time I cast it, I'm like, oh god, this card is horrible. It just looks like it should be good. It's 1 mana, but having to tap your creatures is brutal.
It is brutal.
There's also Manifest Dread, 1 and a green to Manifest Dread. There's Bedhead Beastie, the Mountain Cycler. And then you're basically thinking about specking on Sawblade Skinner, which is the 1 black-red 3/2 menace, where you can sack something to put a counter on it. And if you've sacked stuff, it pings things equal to the number of stuff you've sacrificed.
I mean, you're asking the wrong person here. Because, like, yes, I'm taking Skin Ripper here for sure. Because I don't think the Twitching Doll is fine, but I don't want to follow up Twitching Doll with Monstrous Emergence. It's like a cool thought experiment to think about. Like, if Spineseeker Centipede is in this pack, you take that, right?
Yes.
That's the only green common you're taking here as a follow-up, right? To not think about just taking Skin Ripper.
But it's not crazy. I would take Manifest Dread over Monstrous Emergence. This is basically, to me, Manifest Dread versus Skin Ripper. And red-green Delirium
Taking Manifest
Dread
third is so blah.
It is so blah, but also Sawblade Skin Ripper isn't very likely to end up... You're not likely to end up Jund Sawblade Skin Ripper, right? This is, if you take Skin Ripper here, you're thinking, okay, I could be red-green or I could be red-black.
Right. And I think that is what I would rather do. And that's sort of what I feel like how we've been navigating. I feel like this pick is more an instructional pick than a pick did you actually feel torn at the time about this?
No, but I think it's interesting. Like, I think there's a lot of drafters that are, well, I have a red card and a green card. Like, I should take Manifest Dread, you know?
I'm more trying to figure out if I need to calibrate, like, am I trying to convince you, or are we largely just like talking to our listeners at this point?
I think we're in agreement. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Cause I just think like, I don't think Skin Ripper Skin Ripper certainly not like if this was Disturbing Mirth, I would be like, oh yeah, like you got to take it. And I think other people would be more in line with that, because I think it's a more powerful card. But I agree with taking Skin Ripper here. It just has the highest upsides of any of these cards, and it's too early to not be taking cards with that in mind.
Right. So this is sort of the inverse of that other the white blue draft, right? The white blue draft,
Uh-huh.
we had a high enough power level, so we were willing to take the hit in power to stay on target there. Whereas here, we don't have that high of a power level, so we're more willing to speculate and feel it out.
And those are the two, and I feel like that might just be canon now, but those are the two teeter totters. I feel like either you already have the power, and then you're just looking to add consistency to your deck, like that blue white draft that you had, or like the red white start that I had, where I like stupidly was like, let me take this Smoky Lounge and give it any amount of weight, like, but I already had all the power, and so I just need consistency. Here, you don't have power. I mean, you have two like good cards, but you don't have like a busted like getting into a lane synergistic start, and so you're just looking for like, what's the good stuff I'm seeing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing to shout about this, you were talking about finding a lane. I Playing in the Arena Open, the best decks I played against were oftentimes 3 to 4 color good cards,
Mm-hmm.
like base green 3 to 4 color good cards, because I think as those drafts get better players in them, people are going to be like bumping and shoving and trying to find their way. The good cards just dry up faster, so the prescripted decks I think are a little bit less good. Like there's more people jockeying for red white and blue white, and then the people who are Jund to play all the good cards, splash them, get a little bit higher power level. Plus the aggro decks are a little weaker. And maybe I just had a weird experience in the Arena Open as well. But I was very impressed with the 3 to 4 color brews that I saw that were not prescripted decks.
I think this next drop in will be in a similar-ish vein. I'm curious to see where you land on this one. So here we've got 3 green cards and 2 red cards to start our draft. The green cards are Defiant Survivor, 3 mana, 3/2, Survival, Manifest Red, Under the Skin, the Manifest Red, and then regrow something. Shout out to you, Insidious Fungus. This is the single green 1/2, pay 2, sack it to either destroy an artifact, enchantment, draw a card, or draw a card and put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. I took this, I think, 4th in this draft, and I never would have had you not shouted it out like 2 weeks ago on the show. And then this became my shout out on YouTube for this. The call to action, if you make it to the end of the video, MVP Fungus. I like had games where I bought this back like 3 times to blow up various artifacts and enchantments on the other side. It was strong. So 3 green cards, a piggy bank, and a clockwork percussionist. So 3 green cards, 2 red cards. Could just have a good little Gruul Delirium start. We've got types, we've got like a low curve, we've got synergy with Manifest Dread, etc. Pack 1, pick 6. Here are your cards: Terramorphic Expanse, Say Its Name, Monstrous Emergence, House Cartographer, the uncommon 2 mana 2/2 survival, find a land, put it into your hand. There's a Grab the Prize, which I feel like you're kind of you love this card now. You look for
Yeah, I just
any
love cursed
excuse.
recording.
Yeah, any
I just
excuse
want
to
to make
put
sure
this
I'm
card in
always
your
open to
deck.
pivot into cursed recording.
And then there is a Defiled Crypt Cadaver Lab in the pack, as the uncommon room that makes horrors and can raise dead a creature.
Yeah, I can see that you took Defiled Crypt Cadaver Lab, which
You'll
is
never
on
guess what I took.
that's on brand for you.
It is on
Uh,
brand.
to me, that's between Say Its Name here and Defiled Crypt Cadaver Lab. I think I would land on Say Its Name because you have a good Gruul start. You could play Say Its Name there. Once you've got Say
Mm-hmm.
Its Name, you got it plus Under the Skin as double ways to rebuy things. And I think what this probably boils down to is that you're higher on Defiled Crypt Cadaver Lab than I am. Like,
Certainly.
to me, I think you see this as reason to build around it, and I would see it as, well, if I'm already doing this thing, I'll pick it up. And so I think that's why you're specking on it here, and I'm not. And I don't know which of us is right or wrong there, but I think it's between Say Its Name and that, and I would have taken Say Its Name here. But it's
Yeah.
it's interesting because this one actually boils down to our eval of a card for whether or not you spec on it.
Well, and also I think it's worth noting that if I don't have Under the Skin, I'm not taking Defiled Crypt Cadaver Lab here. Like I'm already like, oh, I've got one thing that already works with it. Plus it's early enough in the draft that I can, mess around in this space a little bit. I think it's also probably I'm looking for power, right? This like I've got good cards, but I don't have anything busted in this draft so far, and I'm likely not going to out of pack one. And so I feel like Defiled Crypt Cadaver Lab at least gives me a ceiling to attain. Whereas I feel like I take Say Its Name here, and I'm a little nervous personally. Like I know Gruul is a good deck, but I'm a little nervous personally about, do I know all the right pieces to pick up to make sure that even rareless Gruul ends up being a good deck in my seat. Whereas I know if I take Defiled Crypt Cadaver Lab, I'm going to know how to make that work if it's available.
Yeah, I think the other reasonable pick is Terramorphic Expanse. I think you make a case for that as well. The one thing I do like about the Defiled Crypt Cadaver Lab here is that your cards don't really go together. Like, Under the Skin's your best card, and it's a great card regardless, but it's going to be best in a late game deck.
Mm-hmm.
Percussionist and Piggy Bank are going to be best in a beatdown deck. Fungus does not beat down well. Like, you've kind of got a smattering of things here.
Mm-hmm.
And Defiled Crypt Cadaver Lab does give you a clear direction to go after, and you're kind of, you're not directionless because you could just draft red green, but you're drafting red green cards at the moment rather than a focused delirium deck. Like you have no delirium payoffs yet or anything like that, and you'll likely pick them up if you are red green and red green stays open. The thing that makes me worried about that is Defiled Crypt Cadaver Lab a good enough reason to want the game to go long? That is a little less clear to me. So I think you could find yourself in a spot where potentially your late game's not good enough matched up against other late game decks. But ultimately, you're not going to miss any of these green cards. That's the other case for it.
That's something that I wanted to shout out, is that I felt like that if I ended up in rareless Gruul, I don't think any of those cards, because again, this is a spot. Like I guess I think Monstrous Emergence is the worst of those options. I don't know what of those four cards, I'm like, what is the pick? The 3 green cards plus Terramorphic
Say
Expanse?
Its Name is definitely the best card. Terramorphic Expanse, but it's definitely not House Cartographer. That card is totally whatever.
Okay. But like, how many Say Its Names do I want in this deck?
And maybe none. That's the
That's
thing.
why I don't know.
That's why I think it's okay to spec here. Yeah, I don't hate it. I personally would not have done it, but I don't hate it.
Okay. All right. Fair.
All right, we're dropping in on pack 1, pick 5 here. So you've got the following cards: Charred Foyer and Warp Space. That's the mythic rare.
Controversial.
Controversial. I like this card. This card's been great for me. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. You can play it, and then if you unlock Warp Space, you get to play cards from exile for free once a turn. Got FOMO, the 2/3 ETBs, discard a card, draw a card, and then if you have Delirium, you can do a double attack for a creature. Norin Swift Survivalist, the 2/1 that can blink things on blocks. And then
I had that also with Fear of Missing Out. That's pretty fun too.
It's pretty sweet, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Final Vengeance as a potential spec into black-red here. Black for the sorcery, exile target creature as an additional cost to cast it, sack a creature or an enchantment. Here's what's in pack 1, pick 5. There's a Glimmer Light, 2 mana for the 1/1 Glimmer, and then the equipment gives it +1/+1. There's Impossible Inferno, 5 mana instant, deal 6. If it's Delirium, you can flip the top card and play it until your next turn. And there's another Final Vengeance, as well as in the uncommons, Fear of Imposters, which not really in consideration, I don't think. That's the 1 blue 3/2, counter something, its controller Manifest Dread. And then Exercise, 1 and a white for a sorcery, exile target artifact, enchantment, or creature with power 4 or greater.
Yeah, for me, this pick is between Final Vengeance and Glimmerlight. I don't think I'm interested in taking a third color here. And so it's more to me about, do you want to, because it's a big mental shift, or it's a big shift in the draft when you go, like if you have 3 red cards and a black card, as you do, and then you take a second black card, you're eerily close to saying I'm red black in the middle of pack 1, which is not ideal. Versus taking Glimmerlight, which really does, like, it's a worse card than Final Vengeance in my mind, but leaves you a bit more options. Plus is nice with your first Final Vengeance, as the Glimmer is good sack fodder, and then you still have your short sword hanging around, etc. I think in the moment I would take Final Vengeance, but I think this is just extremely close. And I'm probably like feel better about taking the second Final Vengeance because I really am happy to draft red black at this point. Whereas like maybe some people aren't, and then you just want to take Glimmerlight, get deeper into red, etc.
Yeah, to me, this is about delaying the decision here. And I think there's even an argument for Exercise where red white's a great deck. Exercise is the best card in the pack. It's early. You take the
Is
best
it?
card in the pack.
Is Exercise the best card in the pack?
I think so. Yeah, Exercise is very good.
Wow. I gotta calibrate then. I do not have Exercise better than Final Vengeance on my in my pick order list.
But they're close. I would say they're similar cards.
Okay.
But for me, it was Final Vengeance Glimmerlight too. And I almost took Final Vengeance. And I was like, great, let's draft red black. And then I was like, wait a second. I don't need to commit here. Like, if you take
Right.
Glimmerlight, then all of a sudden, red white still looks super appealing. Red black
Right.
still looks super appealing. Red green looks super appealing. Like, there's no reason. Final Vengeance isn't good enough to want to solidify me further into black when I could stay mono red.
And this is basically the pick in the pack where that shift happens in terms of you take Final Vengeance and you're kind of saying, okay, I'm black. You take Glimmerlight here and then my mentality is, let me just get out of pack one as deep in red as I possibly can. Cause you're like almost at the wheel practically, right? Like you're going to be at pick six. And then I'm just like, I'm probably not going to see any, obviously if you see like extremely powerful cards, you take them, but largely then I feel like you're over that cliff of decision points and you're just like, I can make that decision in pack two.
Right. And so I think you could go either way. I took Glimmerlight and did do that. I got out of pack one essentially mono red. If you take the second Final Vengeance, you can take Inferno into maybe a rat. I think other people were talking to Beers today on stream. Other people are higher on rat, I think, than you and I shouted in the last episode for red black. So maybe some stuff to reconsider there. But you could basically.
I had a conversation, or conversation is a bit extreme. I like messaged with Tim, I think maybe in your chat, where I was like, here's my feeling about rat. I think rat is good when you have bombs to find, or I'll play rat when I have bombs to find, because I think, chump block, whatever, sack synergy if you have it, but buys time, and then the manifest red digs you towards those good creatures. If you're playing rareless red black, like I often am, and you don't have bombs to find, I don't think rat is that good. And he was like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so I came out of pack one mono red and ended up red green. I had a pack two pick two beastie beatdown that I spec'd on. Turned out red green was wide open. Had ended up with 4 beastie beatdowns and a couple of the 3/2 hasters. This was a very cool deck.
Plus a Valgavoth's Onslaught, plus an Overlord of the Hauntwoods.
The people don't need to know that.
I mean, I guess they already know. It's a Ben draft. They know what you've got going on.
But was deep enough into red too that also in pack two, before I had locked in green, was able to spec on a Midnight Mayhem. You just that one pick there. But if you take Final Vengeance there, you're basically red black without tons of wiggle room.
Yeah, right. No, it's. I mean, I think you can sort of default, because it's not like you see other black cards worth taking, right? So I think you can do it, but it's a lot. You feel a lot worse about taking Beastie Beatdown, pack two, pick two, when you've got 2 Final Vengeances, because you're like, I've already got my removal.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
No, the last deck, or the deck there that you end up with, looks incredible. All right, let's drop into another one of mine here. This is pack one, pick two, after picking up an Entity Tracker, the 3-mana 2/3 with flash and blue that has Eerie, draw a card. And then you just get the stinkerest stinker of a stinky pack.
Hashtag on brand.
Hashtag on brand. But I think these packs are interesting. Again, it's that I guess maybe it's not a teeter-totter, but this is the part where like you're starting with powers. So what do you do when then you don't see powerful stuff in terms of what direction you go in? So the commons that you see that could interact with this, there's a Twist Reality as the only mono blue card in the pack. The choose one, counterspell, or manifest red. There's a Seized from Slumber if we're thinking about Entity Tracker playing best in blue-white or black-white because of Eerie. So you've got Seized from Slumber, the 5-mana removal spell that's 3 cheaper if it targets a tapped creature. There's Innocuous Rat and Cracked Skull being an enchantment that I guess you could play with Entity Tracker. Fear of Immobility, the 5-mana 4/4 enchantment creature that stuns something. And then in the uncommon slot, there's a Skull Snap Nuisance, the blue-black 1/4 flyer with Eerie Whenever an enchantment enters, you surveil 1.
This is a terrible pack. I think I would just be looking for the highest upside card, and I would put next to no weight on this pick. I think I would take Skull Snap Nuisance here and navigate the rest of my draft as though I didn't have a Skull Snap Nuisance,
Now,
largely.
what if you, and I know this is going to be hard for you to put yourself in that position, but what if you saw this pack 1, pick 1? You're probably not taking Nuisance, right? It's the same deal, but like in terms of I'm going to make a pick and put no weight to it. Would you take Nuisance still?
I would still take Nuisance, I think.
Okay.
This pack is atrocious.
This pack is atrocious. Yeah.
I did end up taking.
I don't know. I guess I don't know. I guess I don't know if you want to take like a card that you feel like is, what's the card you feel like is most likely to make your deck? But that doesn't matter, I guess, right?
That doesn't matter, yeah.
Because there's no weight to this.
There's no weight. Like, no matter where you are, there's no weight. Also, I would just want to shout with Entity Tracker. I think it's a great card. I don't think you have to put it any certain place for it to do work in this format.
That's fair. I mean,
there's rooms in blue-red.
There's rooms. That's true.
There's like lots of green enchantments running around. Entity Tracker is just a very good card.
That's fair. That's a good correction. I did take the Nuisance and ended up like blue-black was very open, and that was sort of serendipitous. But agree. I just think you take the highest upside. Don't put weight on it, which is something like those two thoughts paired together that comes up a lot in this format. Like I'm looking for ceilings, but I'm not putting weight on it. And I think if you're not doing that, if you're like looking for ceilings, but then, okay, well, it's a ceiling, so I'm going to put weight on it. Or you're not looking for ceilings and you're just looking for, if you look at this pack and you go, this pack is bad, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I take. I also don't agree with that. I think like, whatever, the 10% of the time you end up in blue-black in the seat, you're going to be like, dang, why didn't I take Skull Snap Nuisance? Like, so I think that's the reason I wanted to shout out this pick.
All right, so we're dropping in on a couple picks here, building around a rare. Pack 1, pick 1, on brand for me. We opened Abhorrent Oculus. The two.
Oh, this is the draft.
This is the draft. I managed to train wreck terribly after this 6 start. Also, so embarrassing. 5/5 flyer. As an additional cost to cast, you have to exile 6 spells from your graveyard. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, you manifest dread. So dropping in on pack 1, pick 2 here. See the following cards as options. There's a bevy of black removal, a murder, a final vengeance, and a nowhere to run, which is the 1 in a black flash enchantment, gives something -3/-3. And then blue cards, as to follow up Abhorrent Oculus with, there's basically Duskmourn's Domination. The 4 blue control magic. Enchanted creature gets -3/-0 and loses all abilities.
You're just taking nowhere to run here. I don't think there's much of a decision in this pack. Unless you're, tell me what your decision was here.
Well, I think you could maybe think about Shard Mage's Rescue also to protect your Abhorrent Oculus. Or, like, you really want to play with Abhorrent Oculus, so you could think about Duskmourn's Domination. The other removal spells put cards into the graveyard for Abhorrent Oculus. Nowhere to Run doesn't.
I think that's all like pretty narrow. Like I just want to take the best card here. Like there's no really good follow-up to Oculus, so I just want to take the best card here. There's a card I want to like shout out. I don't think it's an option here, but we haven't really talked about this on the show. And I think this card could have even been in our overrated segment or a underrated segment last week, which is Found Footage, the 1 mana artifact that you can pay 2, sack it, surveil 2, then draw a card. Like this is half of your Oculus cost. I don't think you need to second pick it, but that's what I'm already thinking about when I see Oculus is like, okay, how do I fuel it? 1 Found Footage, surveil the 2 cards in. That's 3 of your 6. And Found Footage, I just think like is kind of good at like getting types in the yard, getting delirium, binning, reanimate targets, whatever. Like I don't think it's like, again, you don't have to pick it highly. You definitely don't have to take it second, but I think there's people who think, oh, you have a Found Footage in your deck, something went wrong. And I think there's situational spots where this card is quite good.
Yep. We're dropping in on pack 1, pick 4 now, same draft. So you picked up another Nowhere to Run. You've got Beautiful. Oculus, Nowhere to Run, Nowhere to Run. And then you see the following cards as options. No black in the pack, really. Blue cards, there's Underwater Tunnel, Slimy Aquarium. There's Daggerclaw Megalodon, which is the 5/7 Island Cycler. as well as in the uncommon slot, Scrabbling Skull Crab. The blue 0-3 Eerie, whenever enchantment you control enters, and whenever you fully unlock a room, target player mills 2 cards.
Yeah, I see what you're doing. I kind of think you should just take Tunnel Aquarium. I'm not really a crab believer
Not a
personally.
crab believer, huh?
And it's in a good spot, and I see what you're doing with it. Like, I'm certainly more of a believer when your plan is to self mill, right? Which is what you're thinking about now. You're like, oh, I've got 2 enchantments. I can self mill to fuel my Oculus, or maybe mill my Oculus, pick up some reanimation spells, whatever. I think that's like a good way to think about it. But like, Tunnel also surveils 2, it manifests dread. That's 3 cards potentially in your bin if you want it. And it's like an actual good card. Whereas I don't know if Crab is always an actual good card.
Well, and manifesting Oculus is big game. That's the
Yeah,
best way to get it onto the battlefield. Yeah, I could
exactly.
buy that Underwater Tunnel is here, but somehow off this start, I ended up in 5-color 50-card deck. It was really bad. I looked back at this draft and it was no good.
Yikes. Shall we look back at your Arena Open Day 2? Draft 2?
Please, let's do.
Okay. So I'll let you talk me through this because I know you had some really tough decision points here. So pack 1, pick 1. I think the pick unfortunately boils down to 2 red cards, one being mono red, one being a red blue split. You've got Scorching Dragonfire as I think the only common worth shouting out, and then your rare is Roaring Furnace Steaming Sauna. So Roaring Furnace is the one in a red, deal damage to a creature equal to the amount of cards in your hand, and Steaming Sauna is it is actually, I know Ben often says this, but this is actually your own personal Howling Mine. This draws a card at the beginning of your end step and you have no maximum hand size. There's a Split Skin Doll, I guess is the other card I would want to think about, but I'm never taking Doll over Dragonfire, and I don't know what the pick is between Dragonfire and Roaring Furnace.
Yeah, I don't either. I like Roaring Furnace, Steaming Sauna. I was streaming the other day, and both Beers and Amaz were kind of poo-pooing this card, which made me doubt myself a little bit here. And I also think it's worth shouting Inquisitive Glimmer, too, the white-blue
Yeah.
2-3. Enchantment spells cost 1 less, unlock spells cost 1 less. That feels kind of tough to take over something like Scorching Dragonfire. Ultimately, I decided I liked the upside on Roaring Furnace, Steaming Sauna better than Dragonfire. I think this is a close pick.
And in theory, like you don't have to be red blue, right? Like you've got out like you could do a
It could be
Jeskai control, you could be a Grixis control and splash the red removal in like blue white or blue black, and you could also just play Roaring
You could play
Furnace.
either half of the card, right? That's what
Yeah.
I decided was that it was ultimately flexible and powerful. If I ended up red blue, great. I'm fine playing either half of the card, probably. I mean, the blue side by itself is significantly worse, right? It's like a bad meat locker drowned diner or whatever, you know?
Yeah, I guess. Like yeah, and that's fair. I'm just saying like it's not stone unplayable if you don't end up red.
Correct.
Okay, pack on pick 2. The hits keep coming. There's a Terramorphic Expanse. There's a blue-black duel. There's a Glassworks Shattered Yard. There's a Trapped in the Screen. There's an Unable to Scream. And then in the uncommons, as perhaps the best card in the pack, right? If this were pack 1, pick 1, there's a Brood Spinner, the black-green 2/3 reach, surveil, makes a bunch of spiders, or I guess they're insects. It's a spider itself. So like a ton of removal in Jeskai colors, a piece of fixing, and a strong signpost uncommon.
Yeah, this is a very hard pick. I think ultimately this comes down to Brood Spinner as the best card in the pack versus Unable to Scream, which is the best card to go with Roaring Furnace, Steaming Sauna. I mean, I guess you could make a case for Glassworks Shattered Yard too and trying to do a rooms thing, but I don't think there's really a reason to lock in on a room strategy that early. And the cheaper, the more efficient the removal, the better with something like Steaming Sauna, because the choking point
Right.
is going to be time, and Unable to Scream buys you time. I wish I could say I was brave and took Brood Spinner here. I think if this were just a normal draft, I would have taken Brood Spinner. Normally, that's the kind of thing I like doing, but Unable to Scream is such a perfect follow up to Roaring Furnace, Steaming Sauna here that I ultimately took Unable to Scream. And I think this was the first of what could be considered a misstep. But I think if you take the deal 3, pack 1, pick 1, I think you're probably taking Brood Spinner here. If you take Scorching Dragonfire, you're specking on Brood Spinner.
Correct. Well, because then you're like, ooh, Jund.
Right.
Yeah.
But and I could still have done that with Roaring Furnace, Brood Spinner, and just ignored Steaming Sauna. I think I was supposed to take Brood Spinner here, and I think I made a mispick.
Yeah, you're kind of locking in to red blue. Like you are treating this more as a red blue gold card than the flexibility that it possibly has. But I don't hate this pick, but I agree with you. I think Brood Spinner looks better looking at this now. It also sounds like I mean, certainly you've already sort of alluded this draft or the matches did not go well with this deck, but also it sounds like perhaps the your confidence in this card being as good as maybe you thought is a little lower. Like, are you still not a huge fan of this card?
No, I like this card. That's why I first picked it. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had great experiences with it. I think I was thinking maybe it was better than it was, or I think not giving it enough credit for being a split card. I just wish I had taken Brood Spinner here. I think
Okay.
the gap between Brood Spinner and Unable to Scream, like Brood Spinner might even be a better card than Roaring Furnace Steaming Sauna. I think you could make a case for
That I
that.
could see for sure.
And I think if that's true, you're supposed to spec on Brood Spinner here and just have two different options. You're willing to go down, or maybe you make a Jund thing. I was supposed to take Brood Spinner here, I think, regardless of whether I took Roaring Furnace or Scorching Dragonfire Pack 1, Pick 1.
And there is a ripple that already begins to happen. Pack 1, Pick 3, as I don't think any commons are in consideration, but there are 3 uncommons. 2 we'll focus on. One being Rite of the Moth, the Unburial Rites variant. Return a thing with a finality counter on it and has flashback for 6 mana. And there's Fear of Being Hunted, 1 red, 4/2 haste, must be blocked if able. And which I guess I kind of am lower on this card than I was like week 1.
Yeah, I'm way lower on this card than I was week 1.
I don't think it's bad, but red is a real cost. This does often just trade with a 2-drop, which isn't bad by any stretch, but I just don't play Most Valuable Slayer that much anymore. And that Wombo combo is really what the selling point of this card is, and getting that to stick doesn't happen that much.
Correct.
And there's also a Liver Die, the 5 mana, either return a thing from your graveyard to the battlefield or destroy target creature. So how do you want to proceed here? Like thinking about it as what did happen, or thinking about it as what could have, or
all of it, I guess. I don't
all
know.
the above?
This was just a messy start. So I took Fear of Hunted here. So now have Roaring Furnace, Steaming Sauna, Unable to Scream, Fear of Hunted, which is making me more likely to play blue-red, but also a weird combination of blue and red cards. Like Fear of Being Hunted and Unable to Scream do not want to go
Correct
in the same deck at all. So I was feeling rough about that. Had you started with Scorching Dragonfire and had like Dragonfire, the Brood Spinner, then I think you're happier about taking Fear of Being Hunted here, probably, because it's got 2 types. It's aggressive. Scorching Dragonfire can get a blocker out of the way. If I had gone Roaring Furnace, Steaming Sauna into the Brood Spinner, if I had been brave last pick, I think I would have taken Rite of the Moth here, and then had outs to just abandon ship on the Roaring Furnace, Steaming Sauna, and play some sort of Abzan Reanimator deck. I would have had more power and more flexibility, I think, with that start.
Yeah, and the packs kind of break that way also, which is perhaps leading to you feeling a bit of hindsight about this draft. Like I'm trying to give you the bet. Like it's not a terrible start. I do think like it's just so interesting that taking Brood Spinner is such a decision point there, and it's only pick 2.
Yeah, well, that's the reason that you are willing to spec on powerful cards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is and normally that's how I draft. I don't know why I didn't. It was higher stakes. I guess I was just scared. That's why.
Yeah, maybe.
But that's the reason, is that then you have a lot more power and a lot more flexibility. And so it shook out. Pack 1, Pick 4. I took another Unable to Scream. Had you done other stuff, like had you gone Scorching Dragonfire into Brood Spinner, into Fear of Being Hunted, like all of a sudden you can start taking cards like Clockwork Percussionist. It's just a very interesting draft. We'll post it where we post the episode. You'll be able to see it in the show notes if you want to check it out. It's tough. It's a tough spot. And I think this is where like the format is awesome, right? And I got bit here for being pushed down a start that I was unfamiliar with. And I think I made some poor choices as a result.
Yeah, it's hard. The other thing, like, because so you see a Victor Valgavoth's Seneschal next, which is the black white rare. It has like 3 different eerie triggers if they all happen in the same turn. And then, whatever, you have Drag to the Roots versus Spineseeker Centipede. You get a Shroud Stomper pick 6, which, like, as a follow up to taking the Rite of the Moth, pick 3 would feel so good. Get in that Abzan Reanimator space. But then pick 7, there's a Smoky Lounge Misty Salon, which really swings the pendulum back if you've got, whatever, some amount of stuff to go with this roaring furnace, that I would feel pulled pretty significantly in those two directions still. I don't feel like I would be like, ooh, Shroud Stomper doing it, because I would immediately feel like what am I supposed to do now that I see Smoky Lounge pick 7?
Yeah, but by that point, if you've gone pick 2 Brood Spinner into pick 3 Rite of the Moth, into pick 4 Valgavoth, into either like Centipede or Drag to the Roots, whatever, into Shroud Stomper, that's out of your mind. Like you're off the Roaring Furnace Steaming Sauna at that point, and there's no way Smoky Lounge is good enough to pull you back in.
And you just take Haunted Screen out of this pack.
Sure, or Appendage Amalgam, who cares? Like it just doesn't matter that much. But that start is way more powerful than Roaring Furnace Steaming Sauna, 3 Unable to Screams, which is what I have at this point, which like a fine removal spell, and that's what you want in the Rims deck. I was thrilled to see Smoky Lounge Misty Salon here with the way I had navigated the draft, because you want defensive speed in the Rims deck, and so triple Unable, but you also want diversity of removal, you want the ability, like my deck was pretty much chill and hope to draw good rooms and get the game to go long. And I lost to a bevy of rares and in the first round, and then in the second round, it was brutal. I lost to Act of Treason on my 6/6 flyer, where they had clearly set it up. They had the double strike room unlocked already, and then had that plus Most Valuable Slayer to turn it into a 7-powered thing. And then they had another 2-powered attacker, which was 16 damage. I was at 17, and they also had the +3/+0 to like I was at 17, and I was going to win the
You didn't tell me you said, oh, I got by Active Fusion. I was like, dang, I didn't know you were at 17 when it happened.
I was at 17, and I was winning on my upkeep with Central Stairs elevator room. Like I had all 8 rooms unlocked.
Wow.
It was pretty deflating to get domed out from 17, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
But more than anything, I think the beginning of this draft is messy and hard, and I really wish, but you like not taking the Brood Spinner there has huge ripple effects.
There is like, you don't feel like you can, because like Rite of the Moth is like, it's good. You're not hoping to be Reanimate, really. Like,
no, but if you have Brood Spinner, you're much more willing to, like, because it doesn't have to be full on Reanimator. It can also be Value Reanimator, which is where Brood Spinner's excellent.
For sure. Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think the Brood Spinner's the pick there. This format's awesome. I'm so excited that we get to Armchair Quarterback next weekend, because it's Worlds
Drafts, baby.
Yeah, it's so cool. Worlds is going to be next week at Magic Con Vegas. We unfortunately will not be there, but we will be watching from the comfort of our homes. And draft on Friday and on Saturday.
Yep. And you're off to CubeCon. Have fun. I assume we will get some updates from the goodness that was CubeCon as well.
I'm hoping to do another a tlog.
I'm gonna have so much fear of missing out. So much FOMO.
We'll see. So I'm not want to promise it. Like I may not get to do it, but I that's my plan, is to make another vlog about the weekend, because it should be fun. It's so fun. I've like been Jonah was sick last weekend. My like parents were coming into town, and then my mom was sick. Like just like so much stuff about life. And then I'm like, oh, I'm getting on a plane tomorrow. Like I got to get my head right I'm getting to like do something that I've never done an in-person coverage gig
before. That's
like
awesome.
It's always been from home. So I'm really excited to get to do it. So I got to get my mind right.
Yeah, this is the coverage debut. It's going to lead to bigger and better things with WotC. You're going to be seeing Ethan covering Pro Tour soon.
Well, we'll see about that, but one step at a time. Excited for CubeCon.
All right. Anything else before we go?
No. Excited for these drafts. This format keeps delivering.
Yes, I completely agree. Thank you, as always, Salty Pretzels, for our intro and outro music. Make sure you give it a listen.
You can find all of our content on our website at lordsoflimited.com. We've got links to our YouTube channel. Please check that out. Also, our other social media, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. You can find our tier list for this format and all previous past formats. Since we've been doing tier lists, we've got our merch courtesy of TeePublic, our Patreon page, our episode backlog, all that stuff available at lordsoflimited.com.
If you've got any feedback about the show or any questions, shoot us an email at lordsoflimited@gmail.com.
Thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week for another episode of Lords of Limited.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.